everyone. So the topic which I will be covering today is the concept of welfare state. So talking about welfare state, a welfare state is a form of government where the state actively participates in, where the state actively plays an important role in promoting the economic and social well-being of the citizen. So it is mentioned here that it is based on the principles of equality of opportunity and equitable distribution of wealth with the focus on providing for those who are unable to access the basic necessity. India became a welfare state after gaining independence as it faced numerous challenges and equalities. So the Indian Constitution includes provision for fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy to ensure social and economic welfare. Fundamental rights guarantee civil liberties, while directive principles aim to provide opportunities for economic growth and social development. So in short, this particular introduction states that when the government take care of its people by making sure that everyone has equal opportunities and access to the basic need, towards the basic needs. As India, it becomes a welfare state after gaining the independence. So the Indian Constitution has ruled, as it is mentioned here, that the Indian Constitution has ruled that protect people right and guide the government in promoting social and economical background. So the rules ensure fairness and provide opportunities for the development. So these are some of the pointers which states about this welfare state. So the first one is that a welfare state is a form of government where the state has a significant role in promoting and protecting the well-being of its citizens. It simply means that the government takes full responsibility for ensuring the welfare and the well-being of its citizen rather than leaving it solely to market forces or individual effort. Next point states that this concept is based on principles of equality, of opportunity and equitable distribution of wealth. Now, this particular line means that a welfare state basically aims to provide equal opportunities for all the citizens and ensure the wealth and resources are fairly distributed among the population. This also have to be made sure. Next point is a social welfare state focuses on providing for those who are unable to access the basic necessities and ensuring the welfare of all citizens. Now, this point states that the government provides support and assistance to those who are in need. Further, such as we have unemployment, then there are elderly people, disabled, or we have low income group individual. So to ensure that they have access to basic necessity and a decent standard of living. Next, so India became a welfare state after gaining independence as it faced numerous social and economical challenges and inequalities. So, as it has also been stated that after India got independence from British colonial rule, it recognized the need to address the social and economical inequalities and challenges faced by its citizens, leading to the adoption of welfare state model. Next, so the Indian Constitution includes provision for fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy to ensure social and economic welfare. So as per this statement means that the Indian Constitution has specific provision that guarantee that certain fundamental rights to citizens and also outlines the principles that guide the state in formulating policies to ensure social and welfare state model. Next is the fundamental rights guarantee civil liberties and individual rights, while directive principles aim to provide opportunities for economic and social development. So here we can say that the fundamental rights protect the individual liberties and the right of citizens, such as we have this freedom of speech, then religion and equality before the law. Whereas if we talk about the directive principles, so directive principles on the other hand, they provide guidelines for the government to create a condition for economic and social development, such as ensuring equal pay for equal work. So there has to be equal opportunities for everyone. There should not be any kind of discrimination. Therefore, they have to promote the welfare of marginalized section of society. So the next one is that the aim of a welfare state is to create a society where all citizens have access to the basic need and opportunity for a good life. So this means that the ultimate goal, the basic or the main and the utmost important objective of this welfare state is to create a society where each and every citizen have access to the basic necessity. Basic necessity here means food, clothing, shelter, education, healthcare, and also has opportunities for personal and social development, leading to a good quality of life for all. So these are certain principles that are very important for realizing that the goal of social and economic democracy in India are important. So there are many people in India who have been suffering from these issues, these social and economical inequalities since ages. So the following principles are aimed to ensure equal opportunity, ensuring social and economical equality. Next is the directive principles of state policy. So let me just brief about these principles. So the directive principles of state policy in the Indian Constitution are the guidelines for the government in making laws and policies. So these principles help the government in making new laws or policies. Their main focus is basically on social and economic rights, although when it comes to an enforcement by court, it is the government duty to follow these principles. So the DPSP, that is the directive principles of state policy, draw inspiration from Ireland constitution and Gandhi's idea, which is being mentioned in the present PPT. So they have measures, they help to measure the government progress in achieving social and economic goal and guide decision making. So this DSP in the Indian constitutions are the guidelines for the center and state government in framing laws and policies. These principles focus on social and economic rights and are considered fundamental in the governance of the country. They are justiciable, meaning they are not enforceable by court, but it is the duty of the government to apply these principles in making laws to establish a just society. The DPSP draw inspiration from the directive principles in the Constitution of Ireland and Gandhian philosophy. The main aim is to create social and economic conditions for all citizens to lead a good life and establish social and economic democracy. The principles act as a measure of the government's performance in achieving these objectives and guide all executive agencies and even the judiciary in decision making. Now, the principles promoting social and economic equality. So the first principle is the state should ensure for its people adequate means of livelihood. So this principle basically emphasizes that the government has a responsibility to ensure that all citizens have access to sufficient resources and opportunities to sustain a decent standard of living. This also includes measures to address poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Next is the state should ensure fair distribution of the material resources of the country for the common good. Then this principle highlights the need for the government to distribute the natural resources, wealth and assets of the country in a fair and equitable manner. Their main aim is to provide or to concentrate the resources in the hands of a few and promote the welfare of all citizens. Next, the state should distribute the wealth in such a way that the wealth is not concentrated in few hands. So, these principles highlight on the previous point and emphasize the importance of wealth distribution. So, as it seeks to prevent extreme wealth disparities and promote a more moral distribution of resources and opportunities. Next, there should be equal pay for equal work for both men and women. So here we are talking about discrimination, that there should not be any kind of discrimination. So this principle advocates gender equality in the workplace by ensuring that men and women both will going to receive equal pay for performing the same work. So their basic aim or the objective behind this is to eliminate the gender-based wage discrimination and promote fairness and equality in employment. Next, the state is directed to take steps to impart compulsory and free education to the children up to the age of 14 years. So, this is the most important principle that highlights the importance of education. So, as education as a mean is to empower individual and promote social and economic mobility. It calls for the government to provide compulsory and free education to all children up to the age of 14, which ensure equal access to quality education. Next, the state should try to secure participation of workers in the management of the factory. Now, this principle talks about the need of workers' participation in decision-making processes and management of factories and workplace. Again, their main aim is to promote workers' empowerment. In the earlier point, their aim is to provide quality education. Then before that, the aim is to provide gender equality. Whereas in this point, uh, we'll talk about that there should be a proper method, there should be a proper participation of employees in the decision making. Their aim is to provide workers empowerment. So again, if they have that decision making power, so they will going to feel empowered in the organization. They will also feel a sense of belongingness in the organization, which improves the working condition and ensure a more democratic and inclusive workplace environment. Next, childhood and youth should be protected against exploitation. Men, women and children should not be forced by economic necessity to enter jobs and vocations not suited to the age or strength. So these principles talk about the protection, about the rights and the well-being of children and youth. This principle aims to prevent their exploitation and ensure that they are not forced to engage in work that is harmful or inappropriate for their age or any kind of physical capabilities. Next, the state should ensure to the people the right to work, the right to education, the right to state assistance in cases of unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement. So, this principle talks about the importance of social security, right to work, right to education, state assistance, sickness. So, here we are talking about social security and welfare measures. So, it calls for government to guarantee the right of education, work, assistance in the situation of unemployment, old age, sickness and disability. It aims to provide a safety net and support system for individual during time of vulnerability. Next point, that the state should make provisions for ensuring just and human condition of work for the workers and maternal leave for women. So this principle emphasizes on the needs for fair and human working condition for workers. Further, it calls for the government to ensure laws and regulations that ensure just and safe working environment. Additionally, this point also highlights the importance of providing maternal benefits and support for women in the workforce to ensure gender equality and work-life balance. So these principles are crucial for addressing social and economic inequalities in India and promoting a more inclusive and equitable society. They highlight the role of the state in creating a fair and just system that ensure equal opportunities and protection for citizens. Next topic is directive principles, in particular reflect Gandhian thoughts. First point, the state shall promote the education and economic interest of the weaker section of the society and in particular the interest of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So this principle basically reflects that Gandhian emphasize on social justice and equality. It calls for the government to prioritize the educational and economic well-being of marginalized and disadvantaged section of society. Particularly they are talking about the SC/ST, so who have historically faced discrimination and exclusion. Next, that the state shall take step to organize the village panchayat. Now these panchayats should be given such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as unit of self-government. Now this principle reflects with Gandhian principle of self-rule and decentralization of power. This principle emphasizes the importance of empowering local self-governing bodies such as we have village panchayat to enable them to make decisions and govern themselves effectively at the grassroots level. Next point, that the state shall make efforts to prevent the consumption of alcoholic drinks and other harmful drugs. So this principle reflects Gandhian values of promoting self-discipline or moral values and the well-being of individual and society. It calls for the government to take measures to discourage the consumption of alcohol and harmful drugs, recognizing their negative impact on individual health, families and even communities. Next, the state shall try to promote cottage industries in rural areas. So, this principle reflects with Gandhian principle of self-reliance and rural development. So, it emphasizes the importance of promoting small-scale industries, particularly in rural areas, to create employment opportunity, then to uplift the rural economy and to reduce the dependency on urban centers. Next point is that the state shall take steps to improve the quality of livestock and ban the slaughter of cows. So, in short, this point believes the Gandhian effect where non-violence is there and the reverse for all the forms of life. So, particularly, it calls for the government to protect and improve the quality of livestock. This point also advocates for the ban on the slaughter of milch. Milch basically means milk producing, and draught cattle. Draught cattle means the working cattle. So, from these principles, it has been reflected that the influence of Gandhian thought on the directive principles of state policy basically aims to promote social justice. Then the next one is the self-government. Self-government. Then the next point is that there should be no harm, so moral values, rural development and protection of livestock. So they are in line with Gandhian vision of a non-violence and self-reliant society that prioritize the well-being of all its members. Next principle is related to international peace and security. So the first one is that the state shall promote international peace and security. So this point basically highlights the commitment of state to actively work towards promoting peace, as it is being mentioned, peace and security. So promoting peace and security at the international level. It further emphasizes that the importance of peaceful coexistence, diplomacy and conflict resolution in order to maintain a peaceful global order. Next point, that the state shall endeavor to maintain just and honorable relation with other nations. So, this particular point tells the importance of maintaining relationship, ethical relationship or respectful relationship with other nation. Now this further emphasizes the need for the state to conduct its foreign affairs in a just and honorable manner, considering the interest and dignity of other nation. When we will be considering the interest and dignity of other nation, only then we can make good relations. Next point, the states shall foster respect for international laws and treaty obligation. So again, this principle talks about international laws and treaties, which states that by international legal obligations or by promoting a culture of respect for international norms and agreement, helps to improve the society, helps to respect the territory integration of another nation as well. Next, the state shall encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration, that is mutual agreement. So this line promotes the peaceful resolution of international disputes through arbitration and mutual agreement. It encourages the use of diplomatic, negotiation, meditation and other peaceful means to resolve conflict instead of resorting to violence or aggression. It further reflects the commitment of the state to the principles of peaceful conflict resolution. From these principles, it has been identified that the importance which is being placed by the Constitution makes on maintaining international peace, then peace and security, then further they guide the foreign policy for the state, emphasizing the need for peaceful relations, respect for international norms and the peaceful resolution of disputes, and by promoting these principles, the state aims to contribute to a peaceful and harmonious international order. Now, the next one is the miscellaneous principles. So first one is that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of country. So this principle talks about the recognition of the importance of environmental conservation and the need to protect natural resources. Here, the responsibility of the state is to take the measures to protect and to improve the environment, which includes safeguarding forest and wildlife. Now, this includes promoting sustainable development further. Then we have biodiversity conservation or addressing issues like pollution or climate changes. So this state is expected to implement policies. The state here, expected to implement policies and initiative that promotes environmental protection as well, such as enacting laws to prevent deforestation or promoting of afforestation and conserving work-life habits. So everything is important. So it all involves or it is all being done in order to raise awareness among the public about the importance of environmental conservation and encourage the individual to adopt sustainable practices. Next point, so this point states that state shall take steps for the maintenance and protection of the historical monuments, places or objects of national importance. So this point or this line signifies the preservation of the cultural heritage and historical legacy of the country. Here the responsibility of a state is to take the measures for the maintenance and protection and preservation of the historical monuments or object or places that holds national importance. So the state is expected to allocate resources and establish mechanisms to ensure the maintenance and protection of historical monuments and sites. This includes implementing conservation measures, conducting restoring works when necessary, and preventing unauthorized alteration or damage to these cultural assets. So their basic objective is to preserve the rich history and the cultural heritage of the nation for future generation. So these miscellaneous principles reflect the commitment of state to environmental conservation and the preservation of cultural heritage. So by implementing measures to protect the environment and safeguarding historical monuments, the state aims to ensure the sustainability, development and cultural identity of the country. Next are the directive principles of state policy and fundamental rights. So the directive principles and fundamental rights in Indian Constitution both aim to establish a welfare state. However, there are key differences between the two. So the first one is directive principles are not legally enforceable while fundamental rights are protected by the law. So it basically states that if a person's fundamental rights are violated, they can approach the Supreme Court or High Court to seek justice and protection. The government is legally obligated to uphold and protect these rights for all citizens, whereas the government is not bound by the law to implement directive principles. It has to have a moral and constitution duty to work towards these realizations. So the directive principles provide guidance, which states the other point that the government is obligated to uphold the fundamental rights but not bound by law to implementing the directive principles. So next one is that the directive principles provide guidance for the government to achieve welfare state while fundamental rights are constitutionally ensured and must be protected. Then, although fundamental rights are given more importance in the Constitution, the implementation of directive principles are crucial for social and economic democracy. Public opinion plays a vital role in influencing the government to prioritize the implementation of important directive principles. So I will be giving a brief about these points. So it states that directive principles in the Indian constitutions are the guidelines for the government in frame policy and work towards achieving the social and economic goals. However, talking about the fundamental rights, they are not legally enforceable, which is being mentioned by the court. This means that individual cannot directly approach the judiciary to seek enforcement of directive principles. Then, on the other hand, fundamental rights are being protected by the court. If a person's fundamental rights are violated, they can approach the Supreme Court or High Court to seek justice and protection. The government is legally obligated to uphold and protect these rights for its citizens. Next is that while the government is not bound by the law, so to implement directive principle, it has moral and constitution duty to work towards their realization. Coming to the fundamental principles, so fundamental rights on the other hand are being ensured and must be protected by government. This includes rights such as right to equality. Then we have freedom of speech and expression and protection against discrimination. So in short, in summary, while there are differences between directive principles and fundamental rights, they are complementary to each other. Fundamental rights ensure political democracy, while directive principles aim to establish social and economic democracy. Creating public opinion in favor of implementing important directive principles can contribute to its effective implementation. Thank you.